We on?
You're on.
All right. Welcome to our very first episode of Public Health Unmuted. I am so glad you all are here. Today we are diving into something that affects millions of women, but doesn't get nearly enough attention. And this is the healthcare disparities that women of color face when trying to access quality healthcare. I'm joined today with Zoe Robinson, an administrative officer who is currently furloughed from a government agency,
It's not
and
funny.
Tanya Taylor, a
Furlough.
marketing executive and AI expert at,
Tanya R.
at,
Taylor. Say
at
that again.
Tanya R. Taylor, a marketing executive and AI expert at a private digital marketing company who's going to help us unpack this issue and, more importantly, show us what we can do about it. Welcome to the show, y'all.
Thank you for having us.
So, in this first segment, I want to discuss the comfort gap. So, let's start with the statistic that really stopped me in my tracks, where I read that only 1 in 4 adults over 45 feels comfortable with their doctors and the healthcare solutions they're receiving, and that's 1 in 4. But when we look specifically at women of color, that number tells us an even more troubling story, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what is some of your experiences, when dealing with physicians? What I've found thus far, just being in the public health space, is that most women of color complain that um, the physician doesn't listen to them. They don't hear a word they say. They gaslight them, and they look over and don't pay attention. And a lot of times, I equate that with our own history as men of color and our disparaging, feelings about physicians, where, you got the Tuskegee Institute with the men, but then you got the various experiments on women of color. And I always reference Harriet Washington's book, Medical Apartheid, where she talks about the history of how women of color have been experimented on with no anesthesia, doing surgeries, doing OBGYN stuff on them. And, they're saying that, in their belief, women of color have the highest threshold for pain. So y'all are good candidates for that kind of stuff. But I think it's sickening all. All of it's just sickening. What do y'all say?
Tanya, do you want to go first?
I would say I agree. It's all kinds of situations out where um the doctor doesn't listen. And I can tell you specifically about a situation with a ENT that I had. And I was went there for a specific problem. And my entire visit lasted 30 seconds. And I'm literally not kidding. It was 30 seconds.
Mm.
Um I was appalled. He put me on. I know it was the entire visit. I waited longer to see him than he took the time to see me.
Oh my goodness. Now, let me ask you, was this a doctor of color or this was not?
This was a doctor of color of
Male?
Indian descent.
Um,
Mm.
male?
Yes.
I've had the same experience.
And he put me on my problem was he put me on a nasal spray. It was giving me headaches. It was
It
giving
was
me really
close
bad headaches. And I
to the
told him, oh, okay, well, don't do it 2 times a day, do it one. And he's telling me this as he's walking me out the room to the checkout.
Mm.
And when I went to my primary care and he looked at the notes and I told him, he was like, oh, oh, I see. How did he see you from this time? I said he didn't. And he didn't want to hear anything that I said. So another friend of mine who's in the medical space, I told her what the medicine was. She was like, that's a known side effect. And he was supposed to document it, call it in, and do all of these things. And he did none of that and take you off of it. not tell you to use it less. So I stopped using it. Headaches went away.
Mm.
Wow.
What do you have to add to that? What was your one of your
Okay.
experiences though?
So I had to get a colposcopy, and it is very well known that some women, a lot of women, have nerve endings in their cervix. Okay. Regardless of what anybody says, colposcopies can be very, very painful for a lot of women. Okay. I also had an IUD insertion, and you were there with me after I got the IUD inserted. That was one of the most painful experiences, besides giving birth, that I have had, without anesthesia, by the way, and was just told, oh, just take some Tylenol afterwards. Another time, I was seeing a female doctor. She was not a person of color. And she told me that in order for me to, lose weight, I would have to eat less. Well, come to find out, years later, I'm not eating enough food. I was only getting in 800 to 1,000 calories a day. And it slowed my metabolism down. And so we finally realized, through seeing a dietitian who was a woman of color, love her, that I wasn't getting enough food. So my body was holding on to everything. Everything. So now I'm in the process of speeding up my metabolism. I'm eating more. I have a dietitian. I also have a Black female primary care doctor. And I've only had one male doctor when I was going through my heart issues, because I was severely anemic to the point where my primary care doctor wanted me to go into the hospital, get a blood transfusion and an iron infusion.
Wow.
And stay for a couple of days for monitoring. But I had one male doctor that listened to me and said, there is something going on with your heart. I'm not quite sure how to put the pieces together. And that didn't happen until after I saw a Black female OBGYN, who, she's amazing as well. She was the first OB-GYN that listened to me. Now, I did have a Black female OB-GYN before, and you know what she told me? I needed to lose weight. I was overweight. She was not going to do a hysterectomy until I was below 160 pounds. She gave me instructions to go see a gastroenterologist and get my stomach stapled.
Wow.
Either a gastric sleeve or gastric bypass, because she said I'm eating too much food, I'm eating junk food, and she knew nothing about my diet, knew nothing about how much I was eating. And so that's when I learned, of course, also watching a creator online, Tess Holliday, that plus size people can be malnourished.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why they're malnourished is because their body is holding on to everything that they're taking in, because their metabolism is slow. Well, it took female Black doctors to sit down and listen to me. And of course, I had to advocate for myself in order for me to start fixing the problems that were wrong with my body. I have not had luck with any other doctor besides women of color. Now, I'm saying women of color because I had a similar experience with a electrophysiologist and male Indian doctor. Everybody said he was absolutely wonderful. I looked at his reviews, everything. He literally saw me for 2 minutes and was like, yeah, I don't think you need us. Put me on a Holter monitor for 30 days. I had episodes while I was on the Holter monitor, but he said it wasn't because of my heart. There's something else going on, and said, I think you need to see somebody else. And this was all by email. He didn't even see me. He saw me for 2 minutes in person and everything else was by email. So yeah, we have a lot of experiences with doctors not listening to us. And you remember coming with me to the emergency room every time my heart would go wacky, my blood pressure would spike 120 over, 114. My pulse rate was 140. I was gray the last time that this happened. And it was a female prior military, retired veteran nurse that was in the room with me, and she was watching my blood pressure. She was watching my heart rate. And I kept telling them, I am anemic. I think this is what's going on. It wasn't until after my hysterectomy, all of that went away. And it was my Black OB-GYN that said, I think your heart issue is related to you having extremely heavy periods and you're not making blood fast enough. Black female doctors, we need more of them because they tend to listen to us as Black women more than any other group, including Black male doctors.
You just made me think of another situation that I had with an Indian male doctor that I had forgotten about. He was a endocrinologist. So I'm sitting in his waiting room waiting to be seen, and I hear this noise, click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. This is like the mid 2000s. So I stand up. I was like, they using a typewriter? Who the hell used a typewriter in 20,000 anything? They was using a typewriter.
Oh,
So
wow.
that should have been the first clue. Who uses a typewriter? Nobody. Okay. So I go back and I see him. I see him. He's explaining to me what the situation is. And I say, okay, well, immediately he wants to put me on some medicine. All of this medicine, blah, blah, blah. I asked him about side effects. I said, well, okay, that's good, but is there a holistic approach? I don't believe in that. And I don't believe in holistic stuff. And if that's what you want to do, you should go someplace else. Okay, I'll do that because I don't like how you just responded to me.
Wow.
So on my way out, I asked him for my records. I said, can you give me a copy and then fax them to my primary care? No, I will only do one. I said, you can't do that as a courtesy? No. I had to fight the man to get, a lot of the doctors, unless it's like a one of those screenings, they wanted fax to them or have it so it could go right into their system and, come straight from the doctor, I guess, so they know it's legit. That's what my doctor wanted. But I wanted the physical copy for my own records, and he would not give it to me. I'm only going to do one. I will send it to your doctor, and I will not give you a copy.
Wow, that's crazy. So, it's not really about being difficult patients or not understand medical advice. This is really about systemic barriers, implicit bias,
yes,
cultural incompetency,
yeah,
and basically a healthcare system that wasn't designed with us in mind anyway. And I think that what surprised me most about my research and what I've seen, going to the doctor with Zoe or going to the doctor with my mother is that, it's definitely some need for some advocacy efforts, but definitely some more need for all doctors to take the cultural sensitivity classes periodically, not just one time in med school. They need refreshers because they
don't think they need that.
definitely show their biases.
They don't need
that. Yeah.
They need to start listening to their patients. That's what they need to do. Yeah. If they took the time to listen to how we feel and what we've gone through, and most of the time, not all the time, but the majority of the time, especially us middle-aged women, we know what's going on with our body. We've tracked it. We've talked about it. We've done research, and we're like, hey, look, doc, these are the things that I feel are connected. And I need you to help me put all of these little things together and come up with a plan to fix this. So a main issue, and this affects all women, is perimenopause and menopause. Okay. Why are my hormones normal and yet I'm having all the symptoms of perimenopause or premenopause? I have night sweats. I have brain fog. I get upset very, very easily sometimes. Sometimes I have no energy to do anything. Sometimes I get on energy spurts and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I feel like cleaning the whole house. Something's wrong with me. When we talk to our community, we talk to our other sisters and go, hey, this is what's going on. I really am just feeling, I don't know what's wrong with me. And they're like, oh, it's perimenopause. I'm going through the same thing, but I can't find a doctor that listens to me. And I'm like, I can't either. We also know, because of social media, that not enough doctors, endocrinologists especially, are getting training in the symptoms of perimenopause. There are very few specialists out here who specifically look at middle-aged women who are premenopausal or going into menopause, and they're studying hormone therapy, and they're studying when we get the stiff shoulder, or frozen shoulder and stuff, and how that's related, our muscles and our joints are related to a decrease or increase in certain hormones in our body. We don't have enough doctors out here who are studying these things. And now we have, oh, well, that's DEI. How the hell is it DEI? When you're literally cutting off a whole half of the population because they're women. Because let me tell you what, when we have legislators talking about medical issues and how it is gender affirming care, why can men get hormone replacement, get testosterone, get the pills, the ED medications, get the hair loss medications, but women can't get that same treatment? We don't have enough educated lawmakers, or we don't have lawmakers who are willing to look outside of their own personal situations.
I think part of the reason, though, what you're saying is too many men trying to tell women what to do with their bodies.
Yes.
And in this day and age, I honestly don't understand how any woman can go to a man GYN. Because if I go to a man GYN, I can't tell you this is how I feel. You have no idea how I feel. There's nothing I can tell you that can make you understand how I feel, because you've never felt that. You've never had those same sensations, and you never will, that I had. And that's part of the problem, you know?
And believe it or not, we can take that one step further, because a lot of times you find that even culturally, when you talk about some of the challenges you have, physically or mentally within your own community, and you go talk to somebody that's not in your community or don't understand your community, they definitely can't understand, what you're talking about when you say you're having these issues or you feeling these things.
Yeah,
And
they're
it's
going to say we're
interesting
making
that,
it up.
y'all are part of that 28% that actually is educated, study, and learn about the things you need to learn to be effective, advocacy for yourself. Because it's like 25% is saying no one asked them to get involved in advocating for themselves. Another 25% don't even know where to start, and 22% simply don't understand the advocacy process or understand what tools they need to bring that power into the healthcare policy space. But we're going we definitely need to push that much harder in our own community. And I think the biggest thing about education is talking to our younger ladies, and letting them know, hey, this is a torch that you have to take on and keep going forward, because it's not going to stop with us. You're going to deal with it too. But in the next segment, let's talk about this myth of apathy. So there's a persistent narrative that people, especially older adults, and women of color, they just accept the inadequate health care because they're too tired to fight or don't have the capacity. But that data tells a different, complete story. What do y'all say?
I mean, we all tired. We got to fight for everything. What was that scene in Color Purple when Oprah
All my
Oprah
life,
told
I had to
had to
fight.
fight? I mean, we gotta fight for everything, and it is tiring. Everything. So I can see that being part of the narrative, but at the same time, you know, you and a lot of people still don't understand you have to advocate for yourself. And oh, I've been going to this doctor for since I was 12, so go to somebody else. The only loyalty you need to have is to you, not a doctor. Because what did they call the doctor? The practice.
They're
Mhm.
They're
practicing on us.
practicing.
Yes.
It's a practice. So what you're practicing on somebody else may not work for me. And again, I have a friend who is in the field where they do clinical studies, right? And she fights for people to do clinical studies with people of color because these things affect our bodies differently than they do somebody else.
Right.
Take cancer research. Cancer research, specifically melanoma. We'll talk about melanoma. The majority of the melanoma studies are done on white men, and
Mhm.
people of color skin looks differently,
Mm-hmm.
especially us, our darker brothers and sisters. Their melanoma looks different. A lot of the times it shows up in their fingernails and their toenails, and we're not told these things. And when you get a physical, your doctor should be checking your fingernails for those dark streaks and your toenails, and checking your skin for abnormalities, which means sometimes they have to touch you. They were going to have to feel you. There, you need to go to a dermatologist as a person of color, especially a Black dermatologist, because the majority of them focus specifically on their cultural background. They
Mm-hmm.
focus on their community. They get taught everything about white skin, but how does that look differently with people of color, and not just Black people? It looks different on Indians. It looks different on Native Americans. It looks different on people of a Hispanic background. It just, you just, we don't get told that enough. We don't get our eyes checked often enough, and especially with diabetes being prevalent in our community, we need more advocacy. We need people like your friend Tanya, who is advocating for people of color to be um, in these testing environments, in these studies, so that we can get better representation. Ryan, you had an issue where your doctor had to fight to get you in a
Yeah.
study.
Yeah, and that's true, and it's definitely good that that you mentioned the other demographics, because what I found here that um, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy related complications than white women.
Mhm.
Latina women face significant barriers to accessing preventive care. Asian American and Pacific Islander women often deal with the model minority myth that masks real health disparities, and Indigenous women experience some of the worst health outcomes in this country. And
Yes.
these aren't coincidences, they are the result of systemic inequalities that we have the power to change through our own education. And it's interesting because when we talk about healthcare disparities for women of color, whether it's maternal mortality rates, misdiagnosis of conditions like endometriosis and fibroids are being dismissed when you all report pain. These aren't abstract policy issues. These are life and death situations. What do y'all say about that?
So it's so funny you mentioned the pregnancy mortality,
Yeah.
I just saw an article on LinkedIn, and when we get off of this call, I'll send it to you. And what caught my eye was this beautiful brown lady, and it was showing her pregnancy picture. But then I read it, it said Dr. So and so, the 5th anniversary of her death. I'm like, what the hell? Here she is, a doctor and pregnant, and lost her life because they didn't diagnose her, they didn't treat her, they didn't listen. It was something with her blood pressure was going up and all of the different things. And from what the article said, it was purely preventable. She's a doctor.
Mm.
A lot of I've seen that a lot lately, especially on TikTok. A lot of women saying, "Hey, my blood pressure is crazy. My doctor doesn't know what it is." And all the people in the comments are like, "You have postpartum preeclampsia. You need to go to the hospital immediately. You will die if you don't." And because of community advocacy, those women get help. Social media has been a structural tool for us to connect to community regardless of the color of the person. We, if you are on social media and you are staying informed, your feed is full of people asking for information or
Mhm.
seeking out help from each other because we're not getting it from our doctors. We cannot be indifferent to women of color, which it feels like that's what we have lately in the medical field. I mean, Serena Williams is a prime example of
Exactly.
how much money you make.
Not just money. She is well known. She's famous. She's infamous.
Right.
She's all of those things,
And
and they wouldn't listen to her.
she almost died. Blood clots and preeclampsia. She almost died. I have a friend who, thank goodness, she had a Black doctor. She was like, something just doesn't feel right. She was not yet in labor. She went to the doctor. They had to do an emergency C-section. Got the baby out in 2 minutes. She almost bled to death.
Wow.
Her doctor listened to her, and she made sure that she had a nursing staff that also listened to her. She had to advocate for herself. And we are constantly having to do that because as women, we're not getting listened to in the medical field. There's no reason why there should be as high of a mortality rate for Black women as it is. That's why we're getting more doulas and more
Mhm.
midwives
Mhm.
registered and educated in each of our states because we're not getting the help in the hospitals that we need. And then that doula and midwife can come with us to the hospital in the event of an emergency, and they can be our advocate. Or they, along with our partners and husbands and boyfriends and fiancés, can advocate together for us when we're not in a space to advocate for ourselves. And I think in that space, there's a lot more men that need to stand up and advocate for their partners as well.
And that's definitely a good ideology for the common community perspective, because we are still in this fight together. So let's talk solutions, because I think when people hear the word advocacy, they imagine having to become a policy expert overnight, or spending hours at a state capitol or some other crap like that. But for most common activities are surprisingly accessible, and is already in our busy lives. So 50% of our advocacy comes from engaging on social media, like you were saying earlier, because we look at a lot of TikTok, look at a lot of Instagram, look at a lot of posts about women talking about the challenges that they've had with this healthcare system, and the challenges they had with male doctors who just don't understand, and thinking that they can make decisions that control your lives, can control your bodies. It's totally stupid.
It's
But
part of implicit
that's what
bias.
we're dealing with. And so that's something, we can all do while, once again, talking to the young ladies, talking to people that are unaware, uneducated about the different changes in the health care system and what it's doing in regards to women of color. Because I think that biggest thing with the Roe v. Wade, overturning, it was more about our it seemed like it was more about our subtle annihilation and more of their longer procreation. But what I know is the way things, nature and the universe are working out is that, it is all backfiring against them. So that's something that they have to deal with while we deal with our own thing. And, while it takes less than 10 minutes to, read different articles from magazines or look at different blogs or just look at YouTube, we can definitely make ourselves aware. But, I feel that as long as there are many of the advocates on, social media talking about this stuff, I think people are becoming more aware like that. So, these top issues span what we've been discussing, with our friends, our families, those in church communities, those talking about Medicare and Medicaid access, which is critical because women of color are more likely to rely on these programs as they age, even though there's more white women that are on these so-called social welfare programs, because women of color are statistically the most educated demographic in this country. And even though we've been able to navigate those high healthcare costs so far, especially with the prescription drug issues and mental and behavioral health, it's been stigmatized in many of our communities, even though we all know it's a farce, especially when it comes to maternal health, which is huge right now. And especially in states where maternal mortality rates for Black and Indigenous women are at a crisis. So I love that you mentioned, our existing networks, social media, and different forms of education, family. So, it seems like we're already having these conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But my question to you would be, it's good and bad and everything, right? Excuse me. It's a lot of information on the internet and it's a lot of bad information on the internet. So there needs to be resources to say these people have been vetted, these websites, these YouTube channels have been vetted, and they're not spewing bad information or wrong information. And sometimes just because people think it's holistic information that is not valid. So do you have any information about that?
Well, like I said, a lot of it is definitely in the research because anybody can in their mind say that something is legit and fact check or confirm or deny because they have their own belief and what's legit and what's not. And that's always going to be a tomato type of thing. But there is a power in our collective voices. And I think that women of color need to be at the center of this movement because you are so disproportionately affected by these policies.
Yes. Women of color should be at the center because what affects us affects everyone. It's the same with the feminist movement, right? That opportunity of Roe v. Wade gave us choices. It gave us options. it gave us the ability to delay family construction and build businesses, build our networks, get education, have opportunities to bring in profit, right? Make profitable businesses, travel. And currently we have an environment in the United States specifically that does not advocate for choice. They want us to be at home, barefoot, pregnant, making babies, doing whatever. But they want that option for white women because we've seen Roe v. Wade gave white women, the majority of white women, the opportunities to make those decisions. We advocated for it.
They
We
benefit.
also were benefactors of it, but it mainly affected them. They were able to get their own bank accounts in the 70s after Roe v. Wade, right? We had privacy options, right? We could be with who we wanted to be with. Of course, Loving v. Virginia gave us the same thing. We could marry who we wanted to marry. And Obergefell, same thing. However, currently those options are being taken away. So we have to use our community. We have to talk to each other. Social media is a tool now that we've been using for years to advocate for each other, to share information, to build a network of support and encouragement and education. And now they are also trying to take that away. So my question to you, Ryan, is where do you see that we can continue to build community without the guise of social media, because it is being prohibited, right? They're trying to take TikTok away. They're trying to limit what we can discuss on Facebook and Instagram. And, people are using Snapchat and stuff to cheat on their spouses. And I mean, I'm seeing it all, especially as a publicist. I see the whole gambit of it. So what do you think we can use to stay connected to each other, to stay with giving out community resources, education, to communicate within our own groups so that we don't lose the momentum of making policy changes, hospital changes, medical advocacy changes for us, for our community?
Well, the first thing is to identify what matters to you most personally. Your personal experience gives you the expertise that policymakers desperately need here. Second of all, choose one action that feels manageable. If you're comfortable with social media, start there. Share articles about healthcare disparities facing women of color, comment on posts from advocacy organizations, use hashtags like healthcare for all, Medicare matters, Black maternal health, health equality. So my final two questions for you two is, okay, so let's just say, our audience, women or whoever is listening to us talk right now, and they're thinking, yes, I want to do something, but where do I even start? What would you tell them?
Start with your neighbors. Start with your friend groups. Talk to each other about what's going on with your bodies. Talk to each other about the issues that you're having with your doctors. Get together and do research together to find doctors that you all can go to who are going to listen to you. I would start locally. Start with your friend groups, and then branch out and your family. Because a lot of older Black women in our families don't go to the doctor enough either, because they were the ones who were getting experimented on. They were the ones who were having these doctors do things to them, and they don't feel like they should be going to see any doctors any longer. And I'm talking about our older generation.
Yes, because you bring up an interesting point. In my mother's generation, anytime a woman had a problem, the first thing they did was a hysterectomy to Black women.
Yes.
to Black women. You ask any Black woman of a certain age, and they've likely had a hysterectomy as opposed to the white women in that same category, because that was
Mhm.
the solution. Oh, okay, well, you're complaining. Let me just take all this out so you can be quiet, you know. But to add on what Zoe said, I would say, you know, make sure, like I mentioned earlier, that you get a copy of all your medical records, right? You get a copy of everything. And if you can, I'm an AI person. If there's a tool, put things in AI that you can trust and let AI, I'm not saying diagnose you because it can't, but it might find a pattern that your doctor may not find. And like right now, they have AI in breast imaging. The AI is actually reading those charts and doing comparison from 2 or 3 years back to see if there's anything that naked eye may have missed to call it out. And I've had a couple of, you got to pay more for it. But the other thing is, you get a physical. I know with my doctor, I get a physical from my doctor. They give me this long sheet about this is good, this is bad, this is in range. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. If it's in range, is it good? If it's in a high range, is it good as in a low range? So I actually have found somebody in California, and I had stopped doing this and I need to go back to. I would send her my labs and she would review them and tell me what the doctor should tell me. Okay, well, this is high and you need to watch this, because this is low and this is a problem, because this is in between and you're okay. The doctors aren't doing that. They send you the paper and you're supposed to figure out what the hell all those plus and minuses and this range and that range. I don't know what that means. That's what I pay you for. Tell
Mhm.
me something other than it's in range. So I would say maybe take all of those things. Find, there's so many AI tools out here now. Maybe there's one that's built specifically for medical, and have it review all that and tell you what it means.
Yeah.
So
Also,
go ahead.
if your doctor isn't helping you, find another one
Mhm.
and keep finding another doctor until you have somebody who is actually going to listen to you, give you the resources that you need, and answer your questions.
So you will apply these recommendations even to women of color who are either managing chronic conditions, caring for aging parents, working multiple jobs, or just too tired to fight right now.
If you're too
Absolutely.
tired to fight, why? Why are you too tired to fight? Who, first of all, who would be too tired to fight for themselves? People who don't have a support system. How can we reach out to those people? How can we reach out to them?
And sometimes you have to fight. You can't just take the doctor's, oh, here's some medicine. That's not a solution. That's a band-aid. I just saw a commercial earlier about somebody that's on mental health medication. Well, the mental health medication was causing another problem, right? So they gave the medication to stop the problem that the mental health medication was doing, instead of saying, why not just stop taking the mental health medication and let's try to find another solution? But I'm gonna give you medicine. They give you medicine to stop what the medicine is doing. And then the new medicine was saying, oh, it might cause suicidal. Well, if somebody has mental health, why would you do that? How is that helping them?
It's
They're
not.
already having mental health problems, and you're gonna give somebody to exacerbate that?
Yep.
Make
Yep.
that make sense.
It's a money grab. And if we as a community would wake up and see what these pharmaceutical companies are trying to do. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Oxycontin. Those folks that abuse that medication, they got help. We don't get help when we have issues with medication. And that mainly affected a certain demographic. They weren't giving us Oxycontin. We were going through holistic ways of managing pain, because a lot of doctors, they don't pay attention to us when we say we're in pain. or they
And the
want to,
mystic stuff worked for how many hundreds of thousands of years?
right,
So why does it not work now? And
right.
what did you
Because
say?
they're
The
making
money
money.
grab.
Yep, yep, yep.
So it's pretty obvious that the healthcare system won't change without pressure from those it serves. And for women of color who have spent generations contributing to communities, raising families, building careers, and advocating for others, now it's time to demand the healthcare access we've earned. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you all this. Why does your single voice matter? Because I think sometimes people feel like I'm just one person. What difference can I really make?
That one difference might help save somebody's life. That one difference might help get somebody out of pain. I might just like this. I mean, they might hear something that make them want to advocate for themselves that they didn't hear before. Maybe somebody else had a 30-second doctor visit and thought that was normal. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. It's not normal at all. I wholeheartedly believe that's true, Tanya. We have to have forums like this. We have to have more opportunities to get information out to people. Can you repeat the question one more time?
So the question is, why does your single voice matter? Because I think people sometimes feel like I'm just one person. What difference can I really make?
Why does your voice matter? That question should not even be a question because everyone's voice matters when it comes to their healthcare. And if they're going to do something to you, they're doing it to somebody else. If they're not taking care of you, they're not taking care of somebody else. We're supposed to be community. We're supposed to advocate for ourselves so that in turn we are advocating for other people. And then we can voice our advocacy online or through a forum like this so that we can get other people to understand what they're supposed to, how they're supposed to be treated, what their needs are through the medical community, what their needs are through Congress, what their needs are through their state legislature, what their needs are through their local hospitals. We have to have people advocating just like they are now with this closing down of these local and rural hospitals because we have people in Congress who do not believe that people deserve to have health care, regardless of whether it's free or not. We have people in Congress who think you do not deserve health care. And there are people like us who are saying everybody deserves care, regardless of their cultural background or the color of their skin or their genomic sex. We all deserve health care. We all should have equal access to health care. We all should have a right to live. And we all should have mechanisms to advocate for ourselves within our community. And this forum is one of those ways. So I want to thank you for having this unmuted session.
And hopefully you'll have more.
So here's my challenge to everyone listening. What's your hot button healthcare issue? What's the conversation you've been having with your sister, your mother, your best friend about this healthcare system? I want you to share it. Comment on your social media and send us a message. Tell us your story. Let's start building a community of activists together. Because your voice matters, your experience matters, and your advocacy matters. However you choose to engage, we can create the change you want to see. So I thank you all so much for being here today because this conversation is just the beginning. Is there any last words you guys want to add?
Just make sure you advocate for yourself and speak up.
Speak up for sure. Use your community resources. Just because you have Medicaid doesn't mean that you shouldn't get the same amount of care as someone with private insurance. So talk to your Medicaid office. Make sure you're going online and reading about what benefits you have. Make sure if you don't have a good doctor, reach out to another doctor. And I know that's really difficult for a lot of people in rural places, because a lot of the times you don't have access to healthcare that you should. But there's community resources out there. If you still have Planned Parenthood, they do way more than just abortion care. They also do breast examinations. They talk about birth control. They talk about family planning. They help you get resources to WIC and all kinds of other things. So reach out to your community resources if you really are limited healthcare access in your community.
That's all you both have right now.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for our first episode. If this conversation has resonated with you, please share it with the women in your life and those who really need to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, and follow us on social media for resources and updates. Tanya, so what are your social media handles for them to follow on all your social media profiles?
You can find me on all channels at Savvy Biz Builder, SAVVYBIZBUILDER.
And you can find me everywhere, Zoe the publicist or Zoe A. Robinson, on all social media platforms.
Well, that's it, folks. So until next time, remember, you've earned better health care. Now let's demand it together. I'm out of here. Have a good one.